we'll now just invite Peri Kohu to come and speak to us as well.
Tūtahi, mihi kui tō, mihi ana au ki tō tātou matu nui te rangi. Te timangatanga me te whakaotika o ngā mea katoa. Me tana tamaiti, tō tātou kai whakaora a tāne nui arangi. Me te wairi o tapuhoki. Rino te pare, tēnā koutou. A lot has been said. I stand here on behalf of my ancestors who invited Alfred Nesbitt Brown to come to Tauranga. In fact, they built some of the roads here. That one over to Te Arawa, my ancestors built that road. The roads along the front of this town, the Strand, my ancestors built that road. But interestingly, I have an ancestor who is my great-great-grandfather. His name is Paraone Koikoi, or Brown, as an English name. He was named Brown, or Paraone, by Alfred Nesbitt Brown as he baptised my grandson, my ancestor. And so today out there at Ngāti Kohu, there's a young lady that has passed away. Her name is Brown. And I remember her at this time. But she carried all of those generations of Alfred Browns. I tell you that because we have a relationship with the Anglican Church, and not to want to distract from the intention of this meeting, but I want to pay homage to Te Kohinga, those that have followed up on history and the actions to get us to this point, that we might have this dialogue, that we might bring together the interested parties. I stood at the back there and had a quick count. I reckon there's about 180 people here. And so there's 180 more people that are in the loop. I know some of you are already in the loop, but just make sure I wake my notes up so I have to make notes now, you know. And I guess, you know, in relation to Te Kohinga, from the time of my ancestor joining the Anglican Church to the time, which is 1838, to the time of the Battle of Baycourt, where we felt betrayed by the relationship that we had with the Anglican Church. Because when push came to shove, however Alistair talked about, you know, how Brown and why he behaved the way he did, I think that it had to do with the fact that his cultural background was English, that he couldn't offend the Queen of England. It wasn't, but I throw that into Alistair's mix. But he did what he did. His wife, his good wife, was a teacher. She taught Praone Koikoi's children to read and write. And in fact, Praone named on his youngest daughter after her. So Harata is a name that's known in this family. Over the years of the subsequent to the confiscations, the Ngaitamarawaho people have protested the loss of these lands. Unlike anyone else in Tauranga, unmatched by anyone in Tauranga. So we were branded rebels in 1864 for what happened at Ngaitamarawaho. And as a consequence of that, they took the lands. But there's another point that's not so well known, and Alisa alluded to that, I guess, in a better way. The reason we got our lands taken off us was because we supported the kingitanga. That's why we got our lands taken off. You want to know why we supported the kingitanga? Well, it was because the English laws, or the laws as understood under the treaty, said that if you want to buy the land, you better talk to the Queen's representative. So Māori's not dumb. We got a king too. So you want to buy our land, you go and see that king. And that caused the war throughout the North Island. From here to Kapia, or from that way, back to front, it started, came down this way. The reason they came to Tauranga is because we supported kingitanga. And we still do. Kingitanga and marae in Tauranga now is where I live, at Turia Marae. And so that's probably as a result of some of the protests in the Sims Commission in the early 1920s. Our people went to the Sims Commission and said, this is our land, we want some recompense for this land. Because we were outside of the job description given to that tribunal, we weren't heard. But there was one compensation that came out of there. It was Kingitanga said, oh no, you can be with us. We'll share the money. There was something like £6,000. We'll share that with you. My ancestors, for whatever reason, said, no, we're going for our own settlement. That hasn't happened. So every decade we had Ngaitamarawaho people converging on Parliament and telling them the land in Tauranga belongs to us. In 1986, the Ngaitamarawaho people and our kaumātuas were talking with council, and some of you might remember those radical kaumātua. They're all radical now, they're pretty tame. But we went to talk to the city council and they wouldn't listen. In fact, they pointed us up to the road, to the lawyer's office up the road that says, if you want to know our Treaty of Waitangi policy, go and see those lawyers. Which, in fact, they had no policy. And the reason why we're talking about policy is they wanted to pull down this town hall. Eh? But we occupied that town hall on the basis that we gave that land to the church for our purposes, so that they would put a school, and they did it. History tells you they did it. That's how my great-grandaunts and so on learned to write and learned to speak the language English. But come down 100 years later, and the land has gone to someone else. But then the council decides, oh, we'll pull it down now, we're going to put a new one there, and there it is next door. I think it's already been condemned. But 1986, they put a new library up there. And some of the Ngaitamarawaho people, I guess, I'll hide behind the name. But I ended up in that town hall, and police busted open the side windows, threw the dogs in through the window, and I went to jail for 2.5 years. But I've never been to jail in my life. But it's an interesting scenario. I could go on about that, but I'll tell you that because the kohinga had brought a focus to that argument for us that we could not do for ourselves. You know, I mean, you'd think that we could get people to listen to our story. I sat in the tribunal in the year 2000, had a listen and presented what a farce the tribunal is. You know, you get 1,300 acres taken, now we talk about 50,000 acres. And all they can do is to come back and say, you know, give 0.0001% of the land back. And then, get this, we won't give it, you've got to buy it. And so, do we have a grievance? Believe it, we have a grievance. And so we're looking for, well, I'm grateful, as much as I may not sound grateful. I'm grateful for these guys down here who come to the party and say, we want to see if we can resolve this. Because when you look at the impact that happened to our people, in 1950, my dad moved into his ancestral home on the side of the Waikato Estuary. We living in dirt floors. We're living in large open piles with the back wall as a hedge. No different, that was great for us. But everyone in my marae lived that way. That's an indictment on the society that we were living in. In 1960, the council came down and bulldozed the homes over because they were condemned. So people lived in their tents while they built houses, estate advances and mighty affairs, and those are some of the impacts on what happens when you get your language taken of you and your land taken of you. I live on a reserve now at Huria Marae. It belongs to Queen Victoria. That's how it was when they took the acreage off us. They made little reserves right around Tauranga. Every marae in Tauranga would start as a reserve, a native reserve. And you know what? It was a blessing because it helped us to cocoon who we are. It helped preserve us from the influences of what was going on outside. So Mangatapu, Haerini, Huria, Wairoa, Hangarau, Peri maraes, the Matapihi maraes, they're reserves. It's not our choice of where we wanted to stay. When they confiscated the land, my family living in Elizabeth Street. And so, and they didn't know that, the land, they had no idea on confiscation lands. What does that mean? 1935, my dad comes home from school and says, they're moving. We've got to move because they want this land. And so our people moved from Glasgow Street, straight across the estuary, to the native reserve that was given to that man, Praone Koikoi, under the native land courts. And so, some of the impacts, those are some of the impacts of what happened. So, don't think I don't appreciate that we are making some progress, but that progress has got to be measured against the impacts on some of the background that I just told you. So, being aware of the time, I just leave that there for the moment. What do we want from it? Well, what David talked about earlier on, we could sit down at the table with the council. We could sit down at the table with the Crown. Oh, should I remember? Remember, the Crown came here and apologised. But you can't eat an apology. Yeah? And so, Mr. Finlinson came and apologised. What he said though was, and I paraphrase this, he said, you know that old partnership that we had? We apologise for not doing under that treaty, not looking after you under that treaty. From this day on, we got a new agreement. We got a new agreement. And so we're looking forward to having that articulated that makes outcomes for Ngaitamarawaho and Ngāti Tapu that are meaningful settlements. And so I know the church has more intentions than the Crown in working that out. But that we sit at the table with those people, we're a patient people. We are tangata whenua, and guess what? We're not going anywhere. People come to our town, they leave our town, but my children, my grandchildren, my grandparents, they said, we're not going anywhere. So we'll be here for the duration. And we do well. I think, you know, there's some huge future ahead for us as we sit down at that table and work out how is it that we can benefit in this town. There's so much that Tangata Whenua can add to the value of what this town can offer. And it's been ignored. And it's been ignored in a political sense. You know, I mean, I've got to keep this job, so I better do what the majority says. But don't forget, we have a treaty agreement that says, you're my partner. And we're looking forward to that. One day, that partnership is going to work for both of us. Nō reira, huri no te pare. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou, mihi aroha. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. This is a waiata. Tamatu kumea ki te uea ki te toma ki kureki rangi I ara kamarue ngarue toia ki te haumarangai kau pakarongo taku kiri te kini o te rutai o mangaru pati pati e aruru mai nei wi wa wahi ao mata kia me tu ai tapi te araka tangaro e atua hao I te tini ki te po e toko ia e arai. Now, just for those uninitiated, you just heard the oldest song in Tauranga. The song talks about the mountain moving to where it is today. It's not a song, it's a karakia, a prayer that was said to take that mountain from out in the hinterlands and put it where it is today. And so, kōrero whakamutunga, pe te hono tātai hono, rātou, te honga wairua ke rātou. A pe te hono tātai hono tātou, ka nohi oro tō tātou tūpuna. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ka huri.